Hello everyone, welcome to our brand new show, The Big Story, where we bring you the hottest topics of the day right in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Rachel, coming to you live from the Straits Times. We are streaming live on YouTube and Facebook, so make sure to like, comment and share with your friends. Also click on the bell button to be alerted whenever we are live. I'll have my newsroom colleagues joining me in the studio today, so make sure to stay all the way. Singapore's economic growth in the first quarter of the year came in lower than initially expected at 1.2%. What does this mean for our viewers out there? It's the slowest quarter growth in nearly a decade as manufacturing shrank amid global trade tensions and an electronic showdown. According to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, global growth outlook for 2019 has weakened and remains clouded by uncertainties and downside risks. I have Assistant Business Editor Poon Chen Hui in the studio with me today to unpack all this for us and distill it down to key takeaways. Welcome to the show, Chen Hui. So Chen Hui, can you break it down for us? What does this mean for Singaporeans out there?
So on the back of the weak quarter that we had this year, so far the government has downgraded our GDP growth forecast from 1.5 to 3.5%. Now it is down to a narrow range of 1.5 to 2.5%. So basically, just going back behind, what does the GDP mean for us? So behind the GDP, which is actually the total value of all goods and services produced in Singapore. So it is essentially an overall indicator of the health of our economy. So it means that there will be an impact on our business activity and ultimately, our jobs. And if you break it down into sectors, so for example, there are some unevenness among the different sectors that we have. If you look at manufacturing, in the first quarter, it contracted, but the infocom sector is, looking much better and it expanded by quite a bit. So depending on which sector you operate in or work in, there could be different levels of weaknesses.
Okay, and we know that right now there is some global economic uncertainty, and that's due to the US-China trade conflict as well, and also the Chinese economy looking slower than usual, and also the delay of the Brexit, right? So going back to the US-China trade conflict, how has that affected Singapore's economy?
Well, on the trade front, Singapore is one of the most trade-dependent economies in the world. In recent years, our dependence on the final demand in China has actually increased by quite a bit. So this means that Singapore is now playing a bigger role in fulfilling the demands for goods and services by consumers, businesses, the government in China. We are playing a bigger role in sort of supplying them all these goods and services. So a disruption in the economy, and just taking China for example, would sort of mean a disruption also to our local companies who play a part in this whole chain, this supply chain. In recent weeks, we are also seeing a weakening of our Sing dollar. So analysts have attributed it to the trade war and uncertainties. Of course, another currency to watch would be the Chinese renminbi, which could also drag on our currency over time. However, that said, things aren't always in black and white. So, for instance, a recent survey have shown that about 1/5 of the companies surveyed have relocated or are considering relocating their China-based manufacturing facilities to Southeast Asia. But of course, right now we don't quite know how much Singapore has sort of gained from this, or even at all. The other side of the coin, and this is harder to put a finger on, but it's about business optimism. So if companies don't feel confident in our economy, they may hold back on investing in our country. And this is money that could help businesses expand, carry out new projects and so on. And of course, if we attract less investment, it would also sort of have an impact on the work that we do
Okay.
So to speak, maybe less work going around, less business activity going around. It may sort of have a long trickle-down effect on job creation and our job security as well.
Okay. This is sort of what Ministry of Trade and Industry Chan Chun Sing said last week as well, that Singaporeans need to better prepare themselves for the challenges ahead. What do you think Singaporeans can equip themselves with?
Well, I guess generally speaking, no matter if you're a business owner or if you're just an employee in a company, you could try to tap on this whole digitalization wave, because technology, it could help to cut costs, and for the individual, it could improve your job prospects. So, for example, yesterday, the MTI also released a study about technology adoption among companies, and they found that firms, including SMEs, have sort of managed to see some benefits from taking up technology. So this could range from anything between adopting a new e-payment system or data analytics, that they have managed to get some benefits, such as in terms of productivity. So the other thing that maybe would be more relevant for business owners, so if you run a company, it could be good to learn more about things like how free trade agreements could benefit you and help you expand abroad. It's not always the easiest thing to understand, but ultimately I guess it doesn't hurt for you to find out a bit more.
Okay, thank you Chen Hui for sharing your insights on this matter. So Our Singapore, that's the theme for this year's National Day Parade. Singapore's 54th birthday bash will focus on the bicentennial commemoration and the theme of collective ownership of the Singapore story. The National Day Parade will be held at the Padang this year. I have journalist Lim Min Chang with me to tell us more about what to expect at this year's National Day Parade. Min Chang, you were at the media conference this morning when the NDP highlights were unveiled. So are there any special bicentennial elements in this year's parade?
Right, so during this year's parade, one bicentennial highlight viewers can look forward to would be the bicentennial floats. So there will be 8 of them, featuring institutions that have been around since the 19th century. So for example, among them is the Singapore Fire Brigade, Singapore Volunteer Rifle Corps. There's also SGH, Singapore General Hospital, which is established in 1821, and of course our own paper, the Straits Times, which dates back to 1845. So that's one highlight viewers can look forward to.
I'm actually quite excited to see the Straits Times float. Do you know how it looked like? Did they review anything?
There's a printing press sort of symbol or logo there.
Yeah. Okay. And just this afternoon in your article, the song and music video for the National Day Parade was also revealed. Before we go on to that, let's take a look at the music video first.
For all those of you listening at home, let's take a walk down memory lane.
Remember the days we set out together with faith. Remember the times so fine when we thought nothing could stand in our way.
Then things weren't the same. The life that we knew had to change.
We struggled through the darkest storms we thought we couldn't take.
Oh, 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 oh.
Through many years gone by, we moved ahead together. We've built a brave new world where we could shine and grow.
Oh, and now we only have to look towards tomorrow to carry on the dream as far as we'll go.
You see the black and white kind of fade into colors, and then I see familiar faces like JJ Lin, Stephanie Sun. I don't know the older artists, but what is the concept behind this? The music video, and all the people that they put in the music video.
Right, so this year's theme song is actually a remake, kind of like last year. So it features mainly lyrics from 2 songs. We Will Get There from 2002 and Our Singapore from 2015. So the music director for this year's NDP, which is Dr. Sidney Tan, himself is a long-time music producer. He said the key message that he hopes the music video will get across is that of gratitude. So that's why it features an intergenerational cast of almost 300 Singaporeans from all walks of life. They are aged from between 5 to 93. So he hopes that the video can bring across the idea of being grateful to our mentors, our teachers, our parents, our predecessors, etc.
Okay. And the music video, who was it? Who directed the music video?
Right. So for the music video director was Royston Tan, who is also this year's multimedia director, and it was composed by Dick Lee. Yeah.
Wow, Royston Tan is like one of our famous filmmakers, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and what are the other things that viewers can look forward to in the parade?
Right. So among the key highlights this year will be the multi-role tanker transport aircraft from the Republic of Singapore Air Force. So it was delivered to Singapore last year, and so at this parade it will make its NDP debut. So another vehicle that will make the NDP debut will be the next generation armoured fighting vehicle under the Singapore Army. So that will be unveiled sometime this year, and during NDP will make its first appearance. Right, and another highlight would be the parade segment, where there will be a SAF and home team volunteer contingent marching on the parade for the first time.
Oh wow.
Right, and one more thing is, in case you can't get tickets, I know a lot of people can't get tickets for the actual show, but on August 10, which is one day after the actual parade, those who can't get tickets can actually go to Heartland celebrations in 5 locations. So those are Punggol, Woodlands, Geylang Serai, Bishan and Jurong East. So there will be carnivals, there will be fireworks, and also the mobile column, which features 171 vehicles, will be split up into these 5 locations. So if you can't go to the actual place, the Padang itself, on August 9th, actually you can view the vehicles at the different Heartland locations.
And during this time, August 10, right, you said the carnival, what can our viewers and Singaporeans expect to see over there?
Right, so more details will be released actually shortly in a few weeks leading up to NDP, because this is organised by the People's Association. So some of the details still yet to be confirmed.
Okay, I guess I was too excited. I maybe there'll be like fireworks or something that we can look forward to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so there will be fireworks for our viewers out there. So if let's say we want to get hands on the tickets to actually watch the National Day Parade at the Padang, how do we go about it?
Right, so ticket applications open tomorrow, so Thursday, May 23rd. So those interested, you can log on to the NDP website. I think it's www.ndp.org.sg, or you can visit AXS or SAM stations to make your applications, and you'll be notified by email if you are successful. So as usual, it's done by electronic balloting, and viewers can make applications for 2 preview shows, which will happen on the 2 Saturdays before August 9, as well as for the actual day show on August 9 itself.
Are you planning to get your hands on the tickets as
I
well?
will be covering the event, so
So you'll already be there?
no choice, I'll be there.
For your family members or something? Or friends?
Unlikely.
Okay. Thank you, Min Chang, for being with us here in the studio
Thanks
today.
so much.
Thank you. So Game of Thrones, love it or hate it. After 8 epic years of chivalry, sex, death and dragons, fans of Game of Thrones mourn the end of its final season on May 20th. Airing in 170 countries, the show is the most expensive ever, with a budget of $15 million or about 20.7 million Sing dollars per episode in its final run. In the United States, about 43 million viewers on average tune in for the final season. I have John Louis, Straits Times film correspondent, in the studio with me today to share his insights on how the series transformed the world of television. John Louis, thank you for being in the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So John, can you talk about what was the reactions on the final episode that aired on May 20th?
Wow, the reactions were really mixed. Some people loved it, they were invested, and they liked how all the threads wrapped up, but other people really hated it. Yeah.
And I know that there's now an online petition, right, where about more than 1 million people have signed to make sure that, to ask for the season to, be done again, to be filmed again.
A do-over. Well, we'll see if it happens, but it's a gesture of, I guess, it's an expression of their rage and anger.
So we have a lot of fans out there.
Yeah.
So in your piece, you said that Game of Thrones changed the world of television. How has that changed not only the consumption but also the production of television series?
Well, first, it's made a genre that was pretty unfashionable for a while, made it popular again, and that's fantasy. In this case, it's medieval fantasy. So, now you see shows like Vikings and Westworld, right, trying to capture that excitement again of that kind of fantasy, science fiction kind of a genre. Even in Korea, you have something like Kingdom, which is also a kind of a medieval fantasy with zombies, yeah. So, yeah, it's made that really popular.
Okay, and how about Netflix? Did Netflix jump on that fantasy too?
Yes, they made something called Marco Polo that was filmed just right across the border in JB, yeah.
Okay. And also you said that Game of Thrones paved the way for R21 scenes to be shown in Singapore on online streaming services. Is this like a decision by MDA to make Singapore relevant and also like keep up its reputation as a global city?
Well, it's just my speculation, but it is part. Game of Thrones was such a global phenomenon. Netflix is also a global phenomenon. So Netflix came in 2016. Game of Thrones was made by HBO, was also gaining a lot of fans here in Singapore, but they were not happy that we were seeing the cut version. So in 2016, the MDA made clear that if you deliver content over the internet, as long as you put a passcode on it, you can go up to R21. And so Game of Thrones went up to R21, and we got the uncut version on things like the HBO Go app. Yeah.
Okay. And how does the pirated versions affect, the television series?
Well, it's the most pirated show in the world, right? But the thing is, HBO has attitude. Okay, we'll block it wherever we can, but they also, sort of like didn't want to shut everything down. They're not, for example, as fierce as Disney is about shutting down. And you go to YouTube, there are a lot of Game of Thrones clips. Why isn't HBO shutting all of them down, right? I think their attitude to it is it's a branding opportunity. They as long as they've heard the show, they might buy the merchandise, and there's a ton of merchandise out there.
Okay. And what makes Game of Thrones, part of popular culture? I've always wanted to know.
Well, it's it's something that you can have an opinion on when things are really political. You can't talk politics. You can't talk anything. For once, we have a TV show that a lot of people have. I know you haven't, but you're
So
maybe
guilty.
the minority. But a lot of people talk about it. They can talk about it over coffee, over lunch. Yeah.
Okay. And going back to the Singapore film industry, television industry, how will Game of Thrones change that landscape?
Well, good question. As I said, Marco Polo was filmed in Pinewood Studios in JB, and it was made by Netflix. It was an expensive show, and it employed a lot of Singapore actors, but it only lasted a couple of seasons. So even if you do follow the formula, and Singapore filmmakers can take note, follow the formula, fantasy, period drama, sex and violence, blah blah, it's still no guarantee of success.
Okay, thank you, John, for sharing your perspectives
No worries,
with
thank
us.
you.
If you haven't gotten enough of Game of Thrones, do log on to straitstimes.com for our Game of Thrones podcast called the Join the Watch, where our recent episode, the journalists discussed whether the last episode was the worst or best finale ever. And we have come to the end of the show. Once again, I'm Rachel. For more news and videos, do log on to straitstimes.com. Join us again same time tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.